This story starts with a 19-year-old guy named Mark Zuckerberg. He's hanging out with his girlfriend, Erica. They're having some serious differences in their conversation, and Mark seems pretty suspicious. Sometimes his words are hard to grasp, leaving people confused. During their chat, Mark makes a wild accusation. He suggests Erica got them into a place by sleeping with the bouncer. Erica denies it, saying the bouncer is just a friend. This disagreement escalates. Erica decides to end the relationship. She points out Mark's wrong beliefs about girls not liking him. This breakup really gets to Mark, leaving him upset and angry. He heads back to his dorm at Harvard University. He vents his frustrations by writing mean things about Erica on his blog. Then he shares them online. Later, his friend Edward shows up and asks about the breakup, surprised that Mark didn't tell him. Edward reveals that everyone on campus already knows. They know from reading Mark's blog posts. In simpler terms, Mark and Erica have a big fight because Mark accuses Erica of something she didn't do. Erica decides to break up with Mark, telling him he's mistaken about girls not liking him. This makes Mark really mad, so he writes nasty stuff about Erica online. His friend Edward finds out. He's shocked that Mark didn't tell him about the breakup. Edward tells Mark that everyone's talking about it because of the blog posts. After the breakup, Mark feels frustrated. He gets an idea. Why not make a website? On it, people can rate the beauty of college girls by uploading photos. But he wonders where he'd get so many pictures. He has skills with computers. He decides to hack Howard University's website to steal photos. He puts the photos on his own site. This idea attracts many visitors. It crashes Howard University's network as everyone wants to check it out. This was like when his earlier website crashed Harvard's servers. However, Mark realizes that stealing data from universities could get him in trouble, so he decides to focus on something different. He's been studying at Harvard. He gets inspired by twins Tyler and Cameron. They are working with his business partner Divya Narendra. They are creating a social network. It lets people connect, share photos, and even find dates. After Mark intrigues them with his idea, the twins want to collaborate. They ask if Mark has any previous inventions, and he mentions creating an app for MP3 players. When asked if he sold it to big companies like Microsoft, Mark surprises them by saying he gave it away for free. The trio then starts brainstorming and developing their social networking site. They name it the Howard Connection. They begin working on its features, including a function to tag people in photos. Mark feels excited about this new venture and is eager to dive in. Mark shares his idea for a website with his friend Advado at the club. The idea eventually becomes Facebook. Advado agrees to invest $1,000 and take a 30% share of the company, leaving Mark with 70%. This investment kickstarts the development of Facebook. Meanwhile, Edward, another friend, uses his own bank account. He deposits the initial $1,000 to get things rolling. Facebook gains traction. Mark gets an email from the twin brothers who first discussed the idea with him. However, Mark doesn't respond to their emails, which disappoints them. They feel like Mark betrayed their trust. This feeling grows when they see how successful Facebook becomes. The twins decide to take their grievances to the Harvard president. They hope for a resolution. Unfortunately, the president doesn't take them seriously. He asks for proof of Mark's wrongdoing, which they can't provide. Feeling defeated, the twins leave without any action taken. Frustrated by Mark's actions, the twins decide to take legal action against him. Despite this, Facebook's growing popularity thrills Edward. He sees it as a chance to start making money. However, Mark is too busy improving Facebook. He pays little attention to Edward's suggestion. Mark's focus is solely on Facebook's development and making it better. He's determined to improve the platform. He will expand its features. He won't worry about making money for now. Meanwhile, Edward, along with his girlfriend Mark meets a man named Sen Parker. Parker brags about creating an app called National. It lets people listen to songs for free, even though downloading it is illegal. Because of this, many music companies sued him, and he faced various fraud charges. He also had a reputation for being promiscuous and a drug addict. During their meeting, Parker boasts about his achievements. He asks Mark and Edward what they plan next for their application. He suggests talking to advertisers and investors. He sees a bright future for the app, especially in cities. He even suggests they move their operations to California, which impresses Mark. However, Edward feels uncomfortable with Parker's demeanor and leaves the meeting. He senses that Parker doesn't genuinely like him. As Edward walks away, he casually suggests dropping the from the app's name. This would make it just Facebook, which he thinks sounds cooler. Mark agrees with Edward's suggestion, and soon they drop from the Facebook name. After a few days, Mark decides to follow Parker's advice and move to California, much to Edward's dismay. Edward becomes upset, feeling that Mark is too influenced by Parker's flashy ideas. Mark and Edward have been arguing a lot lately. Eventually, they decide on a plan. Edward will stay in New York to handle the company's affairs there. Mark will move to California to set up an office. Mark works hard to create a stress-free office. He makes sure the young employees enjoy their work. He also keeps things running well. One day, there's a surprise visit to the office. It's Parker, the same person who once pushed Mark and Edward from 2 Facebook accounts. Initially taken aback, someone suggests kicking Parker out, but Mark decides to let him in. Parker apologizes for his past actions and asks to join them for a drink. The lively atmosphere impresses Parker. He sees a similarity between himself and the employees. So, the team invites him to join. Meanwhile, Edward arrives in California and rings the office bell. Parker opens the door, shocking Edward. He questions Parker's presence, to which Parker responds angrily, insisting on entering. When Mark sees Edward explaining that Parker is there to help grow the business, he is surprised. However, Edward is skeptical, questioning Mark's sudden interest in business matters. Frustrated by Edward's skepticism, Mark storms off to his cabin. Edward, feeling hurt and angry, decides to return to New York. In his anger, he goes to the bank and freezes the company's account in the name of Facebook. This action causes chaos. A few days later, Mark gets a call from Edward, accusing him of going mad. Edward also reveals that he secured a $500 million investment for the company. Edward eagerly agrees to the investment offer for their company, which thrills him. He decides to reactivate the company's frozen account so they can access the funds. Mark advises Edward to head to California quickly, as the company needs his help. Edward is surprised when he arrives at the office in California. He finds it looking different. A legal advisor approaches him and hands him a document asking for his signature. As Edward reads the paper, he's shocked to see that the company has reduced his ownership from 30% to just 0.3%. Feeling betrayed and enraged, Edward storms into Mark's office, demanding answers. However, Mark is too engrossed in his work. He has headphones on and doesn't notice Edward. In a fit of anger, Edward grabs Mark's laptop and throws it down, catching everyone's attention. Edward accuses Mark of diluting his ownership in the company without consulting him. He reminds Mark that they started the company together, and that he is a co-founder. He feels like Mark has kicked him out of the company by reducing his ownership without his consent. Mark responds calmly. He explains that they removed Edward's name from the ownership list. This was because his actions froze the company's account. This revelation leaves Edward feeling even more betrayed. Edward accuses Mark of acting like a child. He threatens to take Mark to court to get back what he believes is rightfully his. He asserts that they both built the company, not just Mark. Edward feels hurt and angry. He says he will not settle for 30% ownership. He will fight for full ownership of the company. With that, Edward storms out of the office, determined to pursue legal action against Mark. He feels deeply betrayed by his friend and co-founder's actions. He is determined to fight for what he rightfully believes is his. After Edward's departure, Mark remains silent. He reflects on the situation. He admits to Parker that he should have done things differently. He acknowledges that something has gone wrong. He is aware of the consequences of his actions. In addition to Edward's lawsuit, the twin brothers also filed a case against Mark. Sonny handled the case, but Mark doesn't answer questions about it. This shows he's indifferent to the legal matters around him. After a lengthy trial, the twin brothers receive a settlement of $65 million. They also sign a non-disclosure agreement. It ensures that the settlement details stay confidential. Edward also receives an undisclosed settlement as part of the agreement. Despite the legal battles, the co-founders' names remain on Facebook's People's page. This shows their key role in the company's founding. Following the settlements, Mark finds himself alone, contemplating his actions. His lawyer reassures him, saying he's not a bad person but needs to change his mindset. Mark takes this advice to heart and decides to make amends. He logs into Facebook and searches for his ex-girlfriend, sending her a friend request. This gesture shows that Mark realizes he needs to fix his past mistakes. He needs to mend broken relationships. Mark's journey doesn't end there. Despite the challenges and controversies, he becomes the world's